Good morning. Welcome to the CRTPO Technical Coordinating Committee on August 7th, 2025. The time is now 10:01. We'll start with introductions first at the table, and then we'll go into the room starting with my left in the audience.
Jason Burdett, Town of Davidson.
Heather Maloney, Town of Huntersville.
Matt Kirkendall, City of Statesville.
Erica Martin, Town of Mooresville.
Vaughn Hanson, Village of Wesley Chapel.
Aaron Tucker, Town of Cornelius.
Bjorn Hanson, Union County.
Todd Huntsinger, Indian Trail.
Roger Castillo, NCDOT.
James Kelly, Town of Waxhaw.
Bryson Hester, City of Monroe.
Andrew Ventresca, Town of Troutman.
Travis Johnson, CRTPO.
Liz Babson, City of Charlotte.
Dan Lever, Charlotte General Services. Brian Horton, Cats.
Diane Thomas, Public Health Focus Area.
Justin Russell, Town of Stallings.
Dave Campbell, Bicycle Focus Area, Charlotte DOT.
Gwen Cook, Greenway Focus Area, Mecklenburg County Park and Rec.
Aaron Pratt, Pedestrian Focus Area.
Megan Green, Mecklenburg County Air Quality.
Mike Polarski, CLT Airport. Sean Epperson, NCDOT, Division 10.
Dana Sujenki, Town of Matthews.
Steve Fry, Town of Mint Hill.
Neil Berg, CRTPO. Justin Carroll, Charlotte DOT. Austin Burton, NCDOT. Luke Bender, NCDOT. David Jones, NCDOT. Chad Howe, Cats. Kevin Robinson, Town of Waxhaw.
Sophie H. Town of Northville. Here, Cats. Just so that Cats.
Bob Cook, CRTPO. Lisa Owens, Kinley Moore.
Bonnie Kilmore.
Park Gentlemen, see that. Tori Moses, see that. Is that going to be some? Yeah, we can. Yeah, we're going to do.
No, I don't. Yes, I'm CRTPO. Jennifer Stafford, CRTPO. Husky Building, RSNH.
Paul. Bro Leonard, CRTPO.
It's gonna be a good day, CRTPO.
Richard.
Great.
Great. Thank you. And again, welcome everyone. Our first item for today is to take an action and adopt today's agenda. May I have a motion?
Move.
And a
Second.
second? You got those?
Who is the second?
Brian.
Brian. Cool.
All right. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Our next item is to adopt today's consent agenda. May I have a motion for the approval of the July 10th, 2025 TCC minutes, the 2024-2033 TIP amendments, FY 2026 UPWP amendment for seamless connections, and last, the active transportation scoring criteria.
So move.
May I have a second? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That also carries unanimously. Now we'll move into our business items. We have 3 items today for vote. First, we're going to hear from Neil and Kelly and Allison.
Morning. So this is an action item, the 2055 MTP. We're asking the TCC to recommend to the board that they adopt the 2055 MTP fiscally constrained roadway and transit project list this morning. An overview of the agenda for the presentation. I'll provide a quick update on the schedule. Merritt will cover the second phase of public engagement. Allison will cover the fiscally constrained roadway project list. Kelly will cover the process to develop the transit portion of that project list, and I'll close us out with looking ahead. So earlier this year, we completed the land use scenario planning component and the roadway revenue forecast. The congestion management process is underway, but close to being in conclusion. I'll provide an update on that towards the end of this presentation. The project evaluation, we solicited submissions from TCC members earlier this year. We have the draft fiscally constrained project list that was the subject of the second phase of public engagement. Public involvement, we completed the second phase of public involvement last month. Merritt will talk about that. We have one more phase that's focused around the draft report, which will likely begin late this year, most likely early next year. And then we're seeking adoption from the CRTPO board on the entire 2055 MTP in March of 2026. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Merritt McCulley. He's going to give you all an update on the second phase of public engagement.
Good afternoon. I know the last time I was here to talk about public engagement phase 2, we were well on our way in the process, and now we've completed the process of phase 2 engagement. So I'm happy to talk more about that and how between the dates of June 19th and July 19th, we had gone out into the community to meet people where they were to talk about the draft fiscally constrained project list. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and the methods that we used in order to engage folks. The main drivers of that engagement was through digital means with our interactive maps and digital surveys in which people could scan a code or take a survey in person with us at our various pop-up events in order to log those comments and those upvotes and downvotes, which we'll go over the results of that in one of the next slides. So like I was saying, we had various pop-up events. I'll review the schedule that we used for that, as well as equity focus groups and a few other activities in order to engage with people. So this is our schedule of pop-up events that we used for our engagement calendar. This is 11 different events over a 30-day period, which equals out to an event every 2.5 days. So I think we had pretty good coverage. We also tried to get events in every county in our planning area, as well as a lot of events that had regional polls. So you might see a few of them in there, like Mad Miles Run Club, in which we interacted with folks that weren't just in Charlotte, but in other counties in our planning area, and even with folks outside of our planning area. And that was true for our Juneteenth festivals as well. We also included a lot of farmers markets and various events in which we knew we could draw people to the vendor table rather than having an outside attraction. In addition to our pop-up events, in collaboration with Kimberly Horn and Civility Localized, we facilitated equity focus groups in order to hear from folks who traditionally haven't been heard in the transportation planning process. And so this is the calendar that we use for that, including folks, once again, in all 3 counties of our planning area, usually meeting up in libraries, although we did have 2 in-person or virtual ones in English, as well as 1 virtual event in Spanish, which I facilitated. And some additional engagement opportunities we took place in, or that we facilitated, were stakeholder meetings with 3 different categories of folks who have a special relationship with transportation in our area in order to get their pointed feedback about the fiscally constrained project list and other concerns they have about transportation. We also did a couple community presentations, one at WUMA. The other one was a youth engagement event that we facilitated with Freedom School Partners. Big shout out to Judy for setting that up. She really pushed for that, and it was an amazing success. Also, thanks to Will for helping to facilitate that one. I conducted a couple radio interviews on 102.3, which is a Spanish radio station here in Charlotte that broadcasts to the broader area. Another attempt that we make in order to engage our Spanish-speaking population this time around in phase 2. And as well, we always have our regularly scheduled board meetings for folks to submit their comments. And so the result of all that is the phase 2 engagement summary, which Kimberly Horner and ourselves have created. And so that is available in the digital version of your agenda packet. The link for that is on our website, so you can view that in full detail with all that feedback that we collected over those various events in order to use for consideration for the adoption of the fiscally constrained project list. And so some key takeaways from that report is that a majority of respondents believed that these projects supported the goals and objectives of the MTP, and most of the projects were reviewed positively rather than negatively. Another great success from the engagement is that the majority of the respondents this time around represented minority communities, with 40%, or roughly 48% of our respondents representing the African American community, which is a 40% increase from last time, as well as a 13% of our respondents were from the Hispanic community, which is a 10% increase from last time, from phase 1 of engagement. And so what we've heard from our engagement, we had 939 data points, which is each time that someone interacted with our digital map or with our online survey. And so we broke this down into roadway projects, intersection projects, and transit. And so beneath those headings, you can see the total upvotes and downvotes for each. As a whole, we got 514 upvotes for projects, and across projects, 126 downvotes. So the ups greatly outnumbered the down, which is always good. You can see the most upvoted projects for each mode, including the John Belk Freeway interchange for roadway projects with the notorious interweaving that we all know for those of us who work in Uptown, as well as South Boulevard Tyvola intersection project, as well as a few intersections with highways. And then for our transit projects, the red line was our most upvoted, with the silver line and gold line extension also being our popular projects in those. And so you can also see total comments for each type of project. And it's also important to note that both for comments and for votes, these are not based on where the person who filled out the form or who did the upvoting and downvoting lived. It's where the actual project resides. So you might see someone who may live in Iredell County might have commented on a project that resided where they work in Charlotte, or where they tend to frequent. So that's important to note as well. And I will pass it on to Allison to talk about the fiscally constrained project list.
Thanks, Merritt. So we're very excited to have this public process that's helped support the information that we've gathered as a part of our roadway project and transit project development and kind of validation of this fiscal constraint process. But I want to just remind you all, you've heard from us before about the process that we've gone through to both develop these projects, evaluate our projects, and then arrive at this fiscally constrained project list. So we're not going to go into the same level of detail that you've heard from us in previous iterations. We just want to kind of provide a brief refresher to kind of help set the stage for the action that is going to be requested from you all at the conclusion of the presentation. So just as a reminder, we began this way back at the beginning of the year when our jurisdictions were asked to submit projects for consideration. And then we went through a project evaluation process and ultimately applied that fiscal constraint determination. Our project submission window began on January 13th of this year and ran for about a month. So just as a reminder, as we were kind of starting this whole process, this really did come from you all. And thank you again for working with your jurisdictional partners, working with everybody in the communities to help arrive at this robust list of corridors and intersections and interchanges that comprise our roadway project submission list. We did do this through an ArcGIS online platform that allowed us to have a pretty healthy list of criteria that we were asking of you all. This was important for us because we needed to be sure that we had the right pieces of information to then arm us to go into the next series of things to evaluate these, determine project costs, and then ultimately take that final step into fiscal constraint determination. So just a little bit of a walkthrough of our process to date. Again, this all started back in January, going into February, when we got those projects from the jurisdictions. Once we had these projects identified, we were able to establish our roadway ranking review committee. And I know that some of you all in here were part of that. Thank you for your additional time above and beyond those of you that are in our steering committees and advisory committee, who also played a healthy role in kind of walking us through this and validating our process. But the R3C that we called this group really played a pivotal role in helping us get down into the weeds of each one of these projects that was submitted, along with our prioritization criteria, which, as you all know, is a blend of both qualitative and quantitative criteria, to help be sure that we were applying those quantitative metrics fairly, and for those qualitative metrics, really working together as a group to determine what all of those were and to apply them evenly, to understand what those project details were, follow up where we needed to. So once we had that R3C together, we reconciled those project submissions, conducted the Tier 1 evaluation, which is mostly some of that quantitative information. That's kind of our first screening of our projects. We kind of have a cutoff established. We worked with the group to establish where that reasonable cutoff level would be, to then take a subset of projects into our Tier 2, more robust prioritization evaluation. That's where we bring in some quantitative, but more of our qualitative measures at that point in time as well for our Tier 2 evaluation. Again, the R3C was really pivotal at that point because that's where we got down into the weeds, went project by project, prioritized all of those projects, and then ultimately came out of that with a prioritized list, both for our corridors, intersections, and interchanges. Kind of around the same time, running in parallel, we were conducting our cost estimations. So those cost estimations were not done in a bubble. We had all that great information that folks provided us. We worked with NCDOT to validate our estimates, make sure that we were doing something that seemed reasonable and feasible for all of our cost estimates. They're obviously at a planning level, but we wanted to be sure that this was something that we all felt good about for these projects going forward. And then once we had our priorities, once we had our cost estimates, we could kind of combine all that information. We had our revenues already established. We'd worked with this group to make sure that those had been adopted in advance, to combine all that information into our draft fiscally constrained project list. And then we went out to public review. That's what you heard from Merritt, where we were able to then bring all of this information forward to members of the public and have them provide us some feedback and some insight on what we had done, how that was received, what folks were seeing and feeling coming out of all of that. So just a summary of what all of this looked like as we were putting the pieces together. Our existing plus committed projects, what we define as coming out of our TIP, in horizon year terms, because we love horizon years for our MTP, this would consist of our 2025 horizon year and our 2026 to 2035 horizon year. We have 93 projects. Those are shown in green on the map up here. And then we have 73 projects that are fiscally constrained projects that go kind of beyond that E+C period. So these are our two subsequent horizon years. So those would be 2036 to 2045 and 2046 to 2055. And then finally, we have a set of unfunded projects. So these are the projects that once we applied those statewide, regional, and division revenues, we measured those up against our prioritized projects. We didn't have enough revenues available to fund these projects. So there are 123 unfunded projects that go beyond that level. And I will say that for all of our revenue funding sources, be those statewide, our two regions, and our two divisions, there are unfunded projects in all of those different areas. That is consistent with every MTP I think you guys have ever done. That's consistent with all the other MTPs that are happening in the state. We always are going to have that funding gap that exists. So now that I've kind of set the stage from the roadway perspective, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly to talk to us about the fiscally constrained transit project list.
Thank you. I'm Kelly Goforth, Chief Development Officer for CATS, and I'm going to briefly review the process that we went through to develop our fiscally constrained transit project lists. I'm going to really use the same slides that I previously presented. So I'm just going to briefly, as Allison mentioned, give a refresher on that. So from October 2024 through May of 2025, CATS went through a process to update our transit system plan, which includes both our Better Bus plan as well as our Rapid Transit Corridor System plan. And this process included the development of a financial model, the evaluation of alternative scenarios, and a robust public input process. And it resulted in recommendations for the updated transit system plan, which included an implementation strategy and a financial plan. As Merritt mentioned, the transit projects were included in the CRTPOs public engagement process over the past couple months, but we also had a public engagement process through this transit system plan update process. And it was a pretty robust process with a lot of good public engagement and participation. So on May 28th, 2025, the Metropolitan Transit Commission approved and adopted the transit system plan along with a fiscally constrained implementation plan. It includes the Better Bus program, which calls for improved frequency, service expansion, microtransit, and bus stop amenities. It also includes the phased implementation of our rapid transit corridors, including the Red Line commuter rail from Charlotte Gateway Station to Mount Warren and Morrisville, the Silver Line light rail from the airport to the Coliseum Oven Station, the Gold Line streetcar extension from Rosa Parks Place to Eastland, and the Blue Line extension from I-45 South Boulevard to Carolina Place in Pineville. We also noted that future extensions of light rail for the Silver Line to the west and east to Matthews would be considered as funding allows, and we'd be implementing enhanced bus in the interim. We also will be studying and evaluating options to be able to extend that further, including other funding opportunities coming up. So we're requesting that the rail projects be included in the fiscally constrained plan in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan to allow our projects to be eligible for federal funding and to be able to advance in the federal project development process. And just to note, these projects, the revenue assumptions for these projects includes the 1 cent sales tax that was approved by the Mecklenburg County Board of County Commissioners last night to place on the ballot in November. So these are the projects included in the fiscally constrained plan, the estimated cost, and the horizon band. With that, I'll turn it back over to Neil.
Okay, just a few brief updates about ongoing activities, and actually the active transportation corridors tool update. This can take the place of the bike ped work group update since Curtis is out today. The bike ped work group will be meeting this afternoon to review the draft active transportation corridors tool. We have been working with the bike ped work group on enhancing this tool following its incorporation within the 2050 MTP. And this iteration of the tool uses a balanced approach that scores projects while giving flexibility for users to adapt based upon need and available data. So this is an optional tool, and we're going to be presenting an update to the broader TCC, most likely in September or October. As far as the revenues, we're working on the transit revenue projections, discretionary grant revenue projections, division maintenance, and those will be brought to the TCC for their review in September. And then we will be requesting action on the rest of that. That's really the rest of the financial plan. That'll be coming to the TCC and the board for adoption in October. The congestion management process, we had a presentation yesterday at a transportation staff meeting about the process where we utilize the advisory committee and steering committee to help us develop the congested corridors as part of the CMP. And member jurisdictions that have congested corridors or fiscally constrained projects are being asked to identify strategies. They're mostly transportation demand management strategies, and we've given them a deadline of August 27th. So if any of you have either congested corridors or fiscally constrained projects in your jurisdiction, you should have gotten an email from me with the homework assignment. If you didn't get an email, you don't have any homework that's due on August 27th. And then just closing out with the requested action, we request that the TCC recommend that the board adopt the 2055 fiscally constrained roadway and transit project list. That concludes our presentation. Happy to take any questions that you all have.
All right, any questions for the team? Yes.
It's a question for Merrick. En español, la gente que habla español en Charlotte tiene preocupaciones diferentes que la gente habla inglés.
Más o menos tienen preocupaciones similares a los demás del condado y de los condados de la zona de planificación, porque para ellos la mayoría viene de países que tienen infraestructura para caminar, para los peatones y para las bicicletas. Entonces, cuando llegan aquí, tienen otras expectativas. Entonces, como los demás aquí, ellos quieren infraestructura para las bicicletas y para peatones y también para el transporte público y tiene preocupaciones de la seguridad y del tránsito también como lo demás de nosotros. So what I said is they have very similar. So what David was asking was, does the Spanish speaking community have different concerns to the rest of the planning area? And what I had said was their concerns are pretty similar. And then as far as being worried about safety and infrastructure for bikes and pedestrians and public transportation and that sorts of thing, but it's amplified a little bit more because from the countries that they come from, those sorts of things are a lot more common. So a lot of times when I go out to the community, they express to me that there isn't as much here as where they come from. So that's a little bit more of a conversational topic for that community. De nada.
Any more questions? All right, may I have a motion to recommend that the CRTPO board adopt the 2055 MTP physically constrained roadway and transit project list?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion on that topic? All right, all those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you all. And again, I know it is not lost on many of you that have worked on this effort. Thanks for all of your effort, because I know that's a ton of work and it's just the start of a process that will continue for the next year. All right, now we're going to hear from Travis and get an update on the draft 2026-2035 TIP.
Hi, everyone. Travis Johnson here. I have two presentations. To kick things off, we're going to talk about the draft 2026-2035 Transportation Improvement Program. We're going to go over the requests, a little bit of background, and talk about the upcoming TIP schedule. So the action requested is to recommend that the CRTPO board approve the opening of a public comment period from August 21st until September 20th on the draft 2026-2035 TIP, the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan amendments, and the air quality conformity determination report. So for background on this, if all these documents are available on our website, which are also linked into the agenda packet, you can also scan this QR code or go to the website at crtpo.org. So the public comment period is necessary for the adoption of the draft 2026-2035 TIP. So we'll be soliciting feedback on the project list. And this will be necessary for the board to act then in October to adopt the TIP, which will then be folded into the state transportation improvement program. The 2050 MTP amendments and modifications are required if the TIP conflicts with what is in our currently adopted Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which is still the 2050 plan. So this, if the project schedules have changed, if limits have changed just through the development process or planning process. The air quality conformity determination is required for MPOs and programs to conform to the purposes of the state implementation plan for achieving air quality standards. And the conformity to the purpose of the SIP means that the activities do not cause new violations as part of the standards. We've also coordinated the draft TIP content and project schedules within the TCC, the board, and participated with interagency consultation meetings with NCDOT and other entities for the project list. So for the TIP schedule, we received the draft STIP in January of 2029 this year. NCDOT had their initial public comment period starting January 31st to April 4th, and then Division 10 and Division 12 had their own public comment periods. Metroline STIP conformity kickoff was in March. We provided draft presentations and updates in March and May. And then the NCDOT Board of Transportation adopted the STIP in July 9th. So looking forward, if the board approves the opening of public comment period in August, we'll then have our comment period from the 21st of September 20th. We'll then come back for the October TCC and board meeting for adoption or recommendation for an adoption and then an adoption, and the FHWA will then approve it in fall of 2025. So with that, the requested action is to recommend the CRTPO board approve the opening of a public comment period for the draft TIP, the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan amendments, and the air quality conformity determination report. And I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Travis. Any questions? All right, hearing none. May I have a motion to recommend that the CRTPO board approve the opening of a public comment period from August 21st until September 20th on the adoption of the draft 2026-2035 TIP, the 2050 MTP amendments, and air quality conformity determination report?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second? Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. Travis, you've got the next one, draft 2028-2037 TIP development process.
Thank you very much. Today we're talking about the request to give an overview of the project inventory, talk about the public comment we received, brief discussion about NCDOT's funding levels anticipated for P8 with a lot of caveats, and then go over the schedule for P8.0 and milestones to anticipate. So the request today is to recommend that the CRTPO board approve the recommended aviation, bicycle, pedestrian, highway, and transit rail project list for submission to NCDOT for scoring in prioritization 8.0 or P8.0, which will develop the 2028-2037 TIP. So overview the project inventory. So NCDOT prioritization 8.0, P8.0 is a data-driven process through NCDOT to guides funding decisions that are programmed in the TIP. So right now we are in the project identification stage of the process. And this includes all 5 modes, including aviation, bike ped, highway, rail, and public transit. Projects submitted for consideration fall into 3 categories. Carryover means it's an existing project that has been evaluated, but they meet specific criteria, such as it's a sibling project or a part, or is included in an environmental document of another project. A holding tank project, which means it was previously submitted but doesn't meet the caveats above. And then new projects are new to the process that were not previously scored. And for highway specifically, then those new projects will come from our draft MTP, or come from our MTP. And the projects for this cycle were identified through the draft fiscally constrained project list, which was just recommended for adoption to the board by the TCC. Project list modifications may be made by the CRTPO board based upon public feedback. The P8.0 project list, though, should align with the MTP because the TIP is a subset of MTP projects. And then the updates will be shared. Any updates or changes will always be updated and shared on our P8.0 webpage. So for public comment, we had a news story about the project in WCNC TV. We did social media posts. We used our website to promote things through the webpage using banner, interactive maps, and project lists, newsletter, calendars, email, press release. We did the most we could to get information out. And for those of you who reshared and helped us get the information out, we appreciate it. Overall, we received 36 comments. In general, they're just general comments about the list, about projects they liked or did not like, brought up safety concerns, and we received a few comments about projects that were not on the project list, but just concerns that the community had about the projects. The majority of these projects also appeared on the 2055 MTP draft fiscally constrained project list. So we reviewed that project list as well to see if there's any significant comments. But overall, staff does not recommend any major changes or any changes to the project list and recommends that they move forward as recommended. So beyond this process, a question we've been receiving a lot is, well, how much funding do we expect to receive as part of this process? So as of this week, we received an email from NCDOT outlining the preliminary numbers. Now, before we share these numbers, just keep in mind that these are preliminary numbers that in all likelihood will go down as projects keep moving through the development process. So as of July 9th, 2025, it's anticipated that the statewide category will have about $1.6 billion. And that's the category in which every community in North Carolina competes for. For Region E, which is Division 8 and 10, It's estimated about 277 million will be available. And for Region F, which is Iredell for our communities, it's 366 million. And then Division 10, which is Mecklenburg and Union, is 53 million. And then Division 12, which is Iredell, for us is 69 million. So again, these are funding estimates with caveats. These will be changed because of variance adjustments, bid adjustments, schedule changes, and every other reason listed here. This is merely the best case scenario, and more or less just to show that as of right now, we all have positive values, which was not true for prioritization 7.0. So as this information changes, as we receive new information, we will share this with you as soon as we are made aware of that information. But just keep in mind, as you share these numbers, these estimates are likely to decrease. And so we should not expect these numbers to make it to the end of the process. So looking at the schedule for P8 and milestones, we came in July to ask for an opening of a public comment period. We held the public comment period till July 31st. Today we're here to ask for recommending the project list. If the CRTPO board adopts the project list, then all projects will be submitted to the NCDOT spot office by September 30th. After the projects are submitted through October to April 26th, projects will be scored. From June to December in 2026. We'll be applying local input points. Then winter / spring of 2027, we'll be calculating the final scores. And then in summer of 2027 is when we anticipate the draft 2028-2037 STIP to be released. And then we'll start that public engagement process as we're doing for the previous TIP. So with that, the request is to get a recommendation that the CRTPO board approve the recommended aviation, bicycle, and pedestrian, highway, and transit rail project list for submission to NCDOT for scoring and prioritization 8.0, which will develop the 2028-2037 TIP, and I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Travis. Questions? Go ahead, Steve.
What did that, just general curiosity, what did the funding look like compared to years past when we actually had money? So P6.
I didn't look at that number. It's low.
Lower.
I mean, I don't have an exact number, and so this is shooting from the hip without looking at that number, but those are not large numbers.
Okay, that's what I was trying to gauge.
Yeah. And those numbers, I mean, in P6, we didn't have new projects. In P7, we had negative projects. So it's significantly higher than P6 and P7. I don't know if NCDOT has better knowledge than I do. Yeah. Right, yeah, we can find those numbers. It was a long time ago, though, so we'd have to account for inflation as well. And
Any more questions? All right, may I have a motion to recommend that the CRTPO board approve the recommended aviation, bicycle, and pedestrian, highway, and transit rail project lists for submission to NCDOT for scoring in the prioritization 8.0, which will develop the 2028-2037 TIP.
So move.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Right, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Thank you all, and thanks, Travis. All right, we have one information report. Jennifer's going to come up and share an update on discretionary grants program.
It's a good news update. So good morning, everyone. Jennifer Stafford, CRTPO. I just wanted to go over the status of some of our existing projects and then talk a little bit about the fall call that's coming up. So we have 115 active projects still in the discretionary grants program, 57 in highway and intersection, 46 bike ped, 3 transit, 5 air quality, and 4 planning studies are still working their way through to completion. And here's just a breakdown of the phases. So of course, the planning projects are in planning. Design is a category that I throw in there that is maybe a project is scheduled out in the future and it just hasn't even been authorized to start yet. It could be a project is waiting for municipal agreement. So we have 28 of those, 26 in engineering, 36 in right-of-way, and 21 in construction. Construction maybe went up a 1 and right-of-way went down 1, but it's right about there. So the good news, We have 51.5 million to program this year, and honestly, that's about 20 million more than I thought it was gonna be. So it is good news. The majority of the funds you'll see in FY 29, 30, 31. Again, these are in thousands, or you can look at it in millions. So we have the regular STB GDA, the Surface Transportation Block Grant. Those funds are the most flexible, so it's great to see these high numbers. We are pretty programmed out on the TAP dollars. A little bit there in 30, 31. We'll see how that goes. The carbon reduction program was part of the IIJA. It actually expires in 26, and we have programmed everything. The CMAQ funds, likewise, it's a 4-year program. It ends in 26. We've programmed everything through 26. We're hopeful that the CMAQ fund program will be renewed, but not confident enough to start programming out into the future. We're pretty sure that the carbon reduction program will not be renewed. If the CMAQ program is renewed, I think we'll know in the winter time or the spring, and the past number has been about $8 million per year, and we try to go 4 to 5 years out as we're programming the STB GDA 5 years out. And so that can be a sizable amount, maybe up to 32 million if it's still the same 8 million that's awarded to us. So we're going to be tracking that closely for air quality improvement projects. We'll see how that goes. No bonus funds available this year. I'm not sure if I know of any coming up or not, but as of right now, no. So again, good story here. If you are applying in the fall call for projects including engineering right away and construction, if you want to put some engineering work in, say, FY 27, 28, NCDOT in the past has been very good at working with us to get that engineering work going so that when we get into larger dollar amounts in the years that's available, we'll have room to get utilities right away and construction going. So I can't stress enough how flexible they've been with that. And so when we get to the pre-submittal meetings, we can go over that a little bit more, but keep in mind that that PE can be before that. So I want to go over the project request cap. And this was a change we made in 2023. And so I just want to, I'm not sure it was a change, it was a clarification because the way it was in the grants policy maybe wasn't quite as clear as it should be, but let's just go over that. So planning projects typically are 500,000 or 1% of the overall pot. So, 500,000 works out pretty well. 1% would be a little bit higher. That's just a target amount. It does say a cap there, but the planning is maybe a little bit more flexible and it's a target. The highway and non-highway projects, typically we take the full programming amount divided by 80-20. 80% goes to highway projects, 20% goes to non-highway projects. And then of that amount, there's a 25% cap, and that has been a harder cap in the past, and I don't expect that would change. So 25% of the 40 million or 80% is about 10.2 million and about 2.5 million for bike ped projects. So that's actually a pretty hefty amount. The 80-20%, if we have shortfalls in there, we do try to keep that 80-20 split even with the shortfall award. So I hope that makes sense. Let me pause for a second. Any questions here or the previous slide? All right. Whoops. There you go. So this is 24, last year's fall call, and I like to share this. So when you're putting together your match, because it's so many points in the overall score, I want to share what's been happening. Local matches last year for highway projects, all were 50% or higher. We had one that was 20%, which brought down the average. But it's getting super competitive. I say this every year now. And then the average local match for bike ped is about 34. I think we were up to 35 or 36% a couple of years ago, but 34% for last year. I think there were 6 projects in both categories last year, maybe with some shortfalls. So the timeline, the fall call will open August 8th, and I'll send out the usual emails, come back up, but it'll be in our newsletter, so we'll announce it as loud as we can. At that time, you can submit for shortfalls, new projects, planning projects. Everything is open. The spring call has been eliminated, so you want to do all your projects now and not anticipate the spring call. We have the mandatory pre-submittal meetings that we've been doing. I think this is our 4th or 5th year doing them. I feel like they're really helpful. They're helpful for staff. They're helpful for NCDOT, and I think hopefully as well for you too. We will do the applicant presentations again, probably early November at a transportation staff meeting, and that is an optional presentation for the applicants just to kind of do 3 slides, high level. This is their project that they're submitting. And as we get into scoring, it just kind of resonates what that project is all about. And then the call will close on October 30th, 5 p.m., hard deadline. I've yet to have anybody miss that deadline, but please don't put me in that awkward position of having to say sorry. After all that work, you missed the deadline. The Project Oversight Committee has sunset, so this year is going to be a little bit different. We will have TCC workshops, and the workshops will do everything that the Project Oversight Committee used to do. We will look at the applications, the score, and then there's so much funding. At some point, there's a line on the scores and what gets funded and what gets cut off. And it really does get that simple. Now, this is very data-driven. We're just looking for where is that line, because it's not going to come in at a true 80-20. Something, it's typically, you know, bike ped projects might end up being 24%, say, and then we reduce the roadway project, something like that. So we're looking at for where that split is, and we will walk you through the process very carefully, slowly. I want everybody to understand, because it will help you explain to your board why these projects are being selected, where that line is, where the funds are being applied. So I think that will help everybody. Then, depending on how fast the workshop goes and that draft submittal list is put together, we will go back to you all and to the board for information either January, February, and then action either February or March. And then that list gets to NCDOT. They put it in their STIP. We will do a how to apply for the funds. We do this every year. This will be during the transportation staff meeting, Wednesday, August 20th, starting at 2 p.m. I don't know if we'll start right at 2, you know, might be another agenda item before us, but it will be in that time slot. And it will also be posted to our our website. And so you can go to our site if you're not able to make the webinar. The webinar will be very much like the last few years. There's a little bit of change on Form 1. It should be intuitive. So if you can't make it, you can either dial in, we can go over it at the pre-submittal meeting, but know that there's not huge changes. So if you've applied in the past, there shouldn't be any surprises this year. So again, with the TCC workshops, I did send out some meeting invites. The workshops will happen immediately after TCC. You're not obligated to be here, but we'd love to have you. We'll provide lunch. We'll just have roundtable discussion. Andrew and I will be sort of co-tagging the presentations, answering questions, and then just really having a good conversation. And these workshops, just like the POC, this isn't about coming and who can yell loudest gets the project done. This is very data-driven, and we remind everybody each year that this is for the good of the community. So these are the workshops planned. If we need one on the 17th, it will likely be remote and part of the transportation staff meeting, although we will probably add a new remote link, so it's not the same as the transportation staff meeting, just to keep this room sort of a, I don't want to say private, we're not trying to not be transparent, but just keep the discussion within the TCC members. So I didn't send out an invite for that. I'm happy to do that. That 17th meeting might be a little bit optional. So the Project Oversight Committee oftentimes had developed a short recommended list at the first meeting. Sometimes people like to just go away and think about it, and they come back and we have like a little 10-minute remote meeting going, yep, sounds good. Take any last minute questions. But so with a larger group, we might need that remote time. And then again, if we're still looking at a list, we might have one more workshop after January 8th. So that's that, and I'll take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right, questions?
All right.
Okay, I'll make a couple of comments. Again, thank you, Jennifer, for your leadership and all the work that you continue to do to improve this process. You're right. That was not only good news, that was great news. We almost doubled the amount of, okay, I'm stretching it a little
Yeah,
bit, but it's a lot more money that's available to CRTPO members to submit projects for consideration. And again, I'll just reiterate what Jennifer said. We now have a new process, and so the POC's gone away, which opens up an opportunity for all of the members to participate in this process and make sure that there's transparency about the evaluation and selection of projects. So I just encourage you guys to take a look at the schedule that's on the screen and participate in that process, so you know going in how your projects fare through the process, and you can help advise your elected board member as they ultimately will make decisions about inclusion in the TIP.
Yep,
So
sounds good. Thank
Any
you.
further questions? I'll pause real quick. All right.
I'm going
Thank
to
you.
pass these out. I'm like 4 short, so Travis, if you don't take one. It's really basic. And leave it, I can recycle it to the board members. Thank you.
Thanks again. Okay, as always, Division 10 and 12 construction updates were included in your packets. Both Sean and Anil are with us today. If you have any specific questions for them, grab them after this meeting. And we have no additional updates from any of our other partners and team members. Any upcoming issues, Travis?
Not unless the audience has something.
All right, I'll pause for a minute, see if anybody in the group at the table has any comments or questions before we close for the day. As always, thank you all for your time and participation in the important work that we do in transportation planning for our region. And with that, we have completed all items on the agenda. We are adjourned.